Greetings. Many thanks to Professor Adil Najam, Boston University, and Oxford University for giving me this opportunity. I should start off by saying that I'm a Muslim in terms of my family faith tradition. I do subscribe to most of the tenets of Islam in terms of practice, but I do not have a literalist view of faith. I tend to view it more in metaphorical and cultural terms, and I do not subscribe to any exclusionary doctrines in faith traditions. And I do subscribe also to the view of Stephen Jay Gould that faith and science are non overlapping magisteria, that each has a place in human potential realization, but they should not be conflated with each other, which can often lead to major problems in terms of how we analyze data and so on. So I'm putting that up front so that my perspective is taken in that particular context. Now, the question that was given to me by Professor Najam is around the research agenda that might link faith and climate change. And I'm approaching this as an environmental systems scientist. I was trained in chemistry, then environmental science, and then my PhD is in environmental planning. And so I approach this as someone with strong roots in natural science, but who sees the world very much in a socio-ecological context. So, from my own faith tradition in the Quran, this is a verse which I feel deserves to be the stage setter for a potential research agenda around climate change. And it deals with the notion of time because a lot of the challenge we're facing with research and practice around climate change is what is the urgency to act on climate change because of tipping points and irreversible damage, and what kind of more drastic steps do we need to take to address that? If we are really so concerned about climate change, we may end up going the route of solar geoengineering, for example. Or do we move to the green transition with critical minerals, which is my area of research, that would be needed for wind and solar, but they would have other spillover effects. And we know that many faith traditions, for example, have opposed mining because of social concerns. But on the other hand, those minerals are needed for the green transition. So those are really interesting and important questions, which I think understanding through the lens of time can be helpful. And in this verse from Surah Al-Hajj, what you see is this notion that divinity has a very different view of time compared to how humans perceive time. But this can go both ways because then people can also have this tendency to have a sense of determinism around time. And in Islam, that has been a challenge because many times in ascetic traditions of Islam, there is a tendency to diminish the importance of the current world because the afterlife is so important. And so any notions of time in the context of our current world are considered minuscule compared to the infinite afterlife. And that disincentivizes action many times on environmental issues. And I have seen that particularly in some discourses within mosques as well, when I try to talk about environmental issues. On the other hand, there are, of course, also important concerns around punishment, divine punishment, and apocalyptic narratives. And how do we then reconcile those? Where does the role of human agency come through? And I would say the research agenda can look at it from two perspectives. One is to ask people of faith whether their views and the way they internalize time is actually having an impact in terms of how they considered climate action. And this can be done through some novel methods like experimental economics techniques, actually, because in economics, you also use discounting factors to downplay the importance of the future compared to the present because you don't know if the future will happen. In religious traditions, there's this strange situation where, on the one hand, you have this prophetic fatalism, that you know that there is going to be an apocalypse, or there's going to be, the coming of the Messiah, or whatever that particular prophecy may be. But on the other hand, you also have this mysterious ambiguity about what time God has ordained for particular punishments, which is revealed through that verse I gave you from Surah Al Hajj. So that would be a really interesting research agenda, to do a large end study around people of faith versus agnostics and atheists, and see where that might go. The second part would be to actually go to experts and theologians who understand doctrine and ask them how this plays out in terms of the arguments that could be used to promote climate action, but at the same time, what might be a hindrance also in some of the doctrines in various faith traditions that would preclude it, because of some of those concerns I raised about, this fatalism, determinism, the importance of the afterlife compared to the present, and to see how they're balancing that out in terms of action and the notion of time. So I think both could be really interesting research approaches whereby we can tackle this issue that has been neglected of late. So those are some thoughts. I really look forward to learning more of what comes out of this roundtable, and hopefully contribute it to future work. I approach the relationship between faith and science and climate action with great humility. And I think these are questions which deserve a lot of serious attention, that is neglected and often highly polarized. So I hope that we can all work together to build bridges, epistemic bridges, and move this agenda forward constructively. Thank you.